Hello. So I hope you enjoyed the first session and the keynote. Now, let me start with a question. Who is an architect in this room? Just raise your hand. Ah, great. So almost everybody. So, okay. So we start with a good ground. So let me start introducing a bit the topic, next-gen solution architecture, and set expectation. I'm not going to show you a nice ChatGPT prompt. I'm not going to do it. You will not have fancy video with stuff done with artificial intelligence. No, here it's more architecture, so we will see more slides. Okay. So now, when the expectations are set, let me start introducing myself for a few words, and we will jump into the content. So my name is Olivier Fortin. So as you hear from my accent and my name, I'm French, and it's 18 years that I'm with Accenture, mostly working on architecture topic. And I started as a technical architect, technology architect, solution architect, enterprise architect, whatever architecture. That's a bit my background, and I'm very happy to be here to explain you what we are doing at Accenture in terms of thinking how to do architecture, specifically with the emergence of generative AI, and what's the change, how it is transforming the field, and how we can do it with it. Now, I will start with a problem statement. Why next-gen solution architecture? And what I wanted to illustrate with this picture is that today it's complicated. Why? Because you have a lot of moving parts when you are doing architecture. When you are creating your new architecture with microservices, with a lot of granularity, the complexity increases. When you were in the old past with mainframe, well, it was kind of simple, right? You have one large box, your mainframe, a number of programs, so you have to optimize your code, you have to do stuff, but the complexity is set to your environment. You have one large box. Now, you have a lot of moving parts around with small container, with dependencies, with the platforms, and a lot of layers that maybe you don't control all of them because you are relying on a SaaS. So the complexity is increasing. Now you have integration challenges between your new and your old. It's cool because you want to do cloud native and new things. That's great, but you still have most of the time your legacy. You are in a brownfield world where you are not lucky to start everything from scratch. So it's difficult to do the integration. Then you need to have constraints. You need to think about security. You need to think about vendor locking. So we live in a complex environment, and what we wanted to analyze here is how to deal with it. Is there new techniques, new stuff we can deal with this complexity? Now, I start with a bit of provocative picture and saying, okay, is AI magic? Think about an architect. I see a lot of men in this room, so I wanted to choose a female to change a bit the team. Let's imagine that this woman is an architect, and she is happy because she is riding an AI horse that will solve all the magic problem, right? AI is everywhere. Now you have glasses created with AI, you have cars created with AI. It's a lot of buzzword and hype on AI. And it's true that AI can solve a lot of things, can accelerate things. You have GitHub Copilot, you have Microsoft Copilot that is emerging, you have AWS Code Whispers. I mean, the list is very long of, okay, you empower your tools with AI and you can do stuff. But when we look at the field, it's great when you are a cloud engineer because it helps creating code, it helps documenting your test or generating text, it helps in the marketing fields where it's generating content. What about architecture? Is it that magic? And sadly, reality looks like more this picture, right? Same lady and artificial intelligence, you are trying to make use of it. But it's not that straightforward. Because when you want to create a nice architecture picture with DALL-E, well, good luck. It does not work, right? So then you have things like Markdown, Mermaid, that if you have tried it, where you can generate diagram. So you can say, okay, fantastic, I will use ChatGPT to create a sequence diagram. Fantastic, I have a sequence diagram. Yeah, but so what? And what we are trying to understand here is the so what. How to help use artificial intelligence. And what I wanted to do instead of showing prompts is to illustrate how we have used generative AI to generate a sample solution for a fixed use case. So let's start with what's next-gen solution architecture. Let's start with a definition of it, right? Here we are talking about cloud native, microservices, DevOps, API, event-driven, data-driven, security, agility. I think I have all the buzzwords, right? So this is next-gen solution architecture. This is what we need to cover as, okay, the next generation of solution, which is current solution, in fact, is all of this plus integrated with artificial intelligence. And the way we framed it is you need three things to succeed using and doing generative next generation solution architecture with generative AI. You need a framework, you need an approach, and tools and assets. So what is a framework? It's something that allows you to speak the same language as ChatGPT or as Claude or as any other of the large language models that you want to use. And this framework is using a frame of the language. So you will use a reference model. I will show you an example. You will use defined steps and things that you need to have. This is putting a frame around it. When I say framework, I don't mean TOGAF. TOGAF is very nice, but it's closer to an approach than a framework itself. So it's more codifying what are the things that we want to see and what are the artifacts that we want to generate. Why an approach is useful? Because then at some point you need to have decisions. Do we continue? Are we happy with the architecture? What's the process? So you need to have this approach tailored with very well identified deliverables. And again, these deliverables and the definition of this deliverable needs to be compatible with generative AI. Because if you spend time in re-specifying the context of what you mean by each deliverable when you are using ChatGPT or Claude, it's just a misery. You spend more time explaining the context than just doing the actual work. And lastly, tools and assets is very important because you need to have an integrated solution. So it's good to have different pieces of the puzzle, but you need to assemble all the pieces of the puzzle in order to make it work. Now, let me start with the first one. The framework. And I will explain the concept and what is around the framework itself. So it's called ADA, Accenture Delivery Architecture Cube. So now, the cube concept is not something new. If you think about architecture, a cube is just a representation in 3 dimensions of something. So if you Google or if you ChatGPT cube, you will see many variants of cubes. You can do a cube of metaverse, you can do a cube of whatever. It's a way to represent 3 dimensions. And the 3 dimensions we wanted to represent is more the flow of thinking. So you start with conceptual, then logical and physical. But in reality, what you decide in conceptual has an impact on the logical and physical, and vice versa. So it's why it's 3 dimensions, because you don't do it sequentially. You don't do just all the physical, logical, and physical, and you are done. No, it's an iterative process. Then a decision you will make on the physical layer will impact your conceptual layer. Now, if we look a bit at the detail, what's in the conceptual layer, and I will spend a bit more time on this slide, is more setting the context. Do I understand the context of the enterprise that is doing the transformation? Do I understand the business landscape? Do I understand the technology landscape? What's the legacy? Where I am here? That's the context settings that will need to be set and understood in order to feed your generative AI solutions that will help you doing the architecture. Then you will need to define goals, needs, and requirements. Why goals, needs, and requirements? Because you need to focus the transformation, if you are doing a transformation, or the architecture piece. And finally, what we have detailed here is a vision. Here you find more traditional artifacts from architecture. You need to define your principles, what are the decisions that you want to take. And the decision is more the guardrail where you will guide the solution that you want to do the work on. And this you need to define it a bit up front when you are setting up the project to make sure that you can keep trace of those decisions all along the line of the stuff you do. And why it's even more important with generative AI is because it's not in your head anymore. It's in the head as well of the tools that you are using to generating codes. So whatever decision that has been taken, you need to make sure you trace it and it gets approved. We had the example in the plenary where Matthias was explaining that there is a nice robot that can do stuff and generative AI suggested to do things. Great, fantastic. It's nice to have suggestion, but at the end, the architect needs to master the solution and the content, and whatever is suggested needs to be checked to avoid hallucination issue and needs to be corrected. Second point, it's an interesting one, is about the structure. It's very easy to be confused when you are using generative AI and to lose sense, because you can ask 3 times the same question. If you just change the word in your sentence in ChatGPT, you will get a different result and sometimes a different structure. So it's why it's very important you structure the architecture that you will create, and you will give structure as well to ChatGPT on, okay, what you are expecting and how you are expecting it. Now, I will jump to the blue part, which is the logical piece. Here you find more traditional things. What is good to use as input and to interact with is to come with your own reference model. And here you have example of reference model coming with your own context. If you are working in retail industries, you will have standard processes that are defined in your company. It's good that you need to use it as input in order to frame and structure the discussion. Same for the information model, same for the technology capabilities. And here I'm using all of this discussion is in the context of, I'm an architect and I want to use generative AI to help me. Again, that's the frame of the presentation, how to do architecture differently. And lastly, this is stuff that are where the AI tools are the more fluent, which is with products. Because they don't know the latest products, they all have the start date. If you look at the GPT-3, it was in 2022, but if you look at the latest version, they are progressing in terms of availability dates. But you can do very fancy stuff with comparing products or asking for creating tables between the product. It could be comparing AWS or Azure products, or it could be listing the features of products that would be useful in your product family that can help you to decide. Now, when we have said all of this, let's try to put it in motion. And I will need to click here. Sorry. Voilà. Now, I said a framework. Now, let's look at the approach. Here you don't see agile or waterfall, you just see the line of thought that I've described. You start with the purple, then you go with the blue, and then you go with the green. What's important in this picture is the experiment and the iterate. So it's a loop, right? I will not going to detail each of the steps here, discover, shape, and experiment. It's natural flow. This is what we described before. Now, what's interesting is if you put this approach in motion. First, you define the scope. That's traditional thing. You need to understand what's your scope, what's the scope of your solution. Then we introduce 3 families of deliverable. Conceptual architecture, logical architecture, physical architecture. Each comes with a blueprint. So we regroup all the purple stuff in a blueprint, all the blue stuff in a blueprint, and all the green stuff in the blueprint. Now, if you mix it with the approach, you see the colors below that are iterative. And this, you can use it whatever you are doing it, waterfall, agile, or whatever form you want to use. This deliverable, it looks like it's sequential, but in reality it's not. You have a lot of iteration in loop. But what is important to capture here is that you need to discuss what's my conceptual architecture blueprint, what's my strawman, what's my vision, what's my direction. Then if you are in Agile and doing safe, you will start doing this when you are creating your epic. Then the teams will pick it up in the art flow and start detailing it, detailing the architecture blueprint, detailing the logical and physical architecture blueprint. Then you will have a slice. Then you will need to come back and iterate. And finally, you have the architecture specification in build. If you are in very large traditional waterfall, this will be formal document. If you are in Agile, it will be very light document. Okay, now we have set the scene. Let's discuss about the tools and assets. Here, you find back the three deliverables, conceptual, logical, and physical. And for this presentation, you see on the right, top right, the tools that have been used to generate the text that you will see after. So, Claude and ChatGPT and OpenAI, these are more traditional ones. You can use Claude now with AWS or with POE. You have access to it. OpenAI can be used directly with ChatGPT or via Azure if you are creating your own solution. So that both works to create a solution. YED now is a diagramming tool which is integrated with ChatGPT. So you can use YED directly. You open it, you have a free live viewer, and you can have a prompt, ChatGPT prompt directly, where you can type and it generates diagrams for you. So that's useful. Now, why Draw.io is in the picture? Because you can ask OpenAI to generate mermaid diagram, and you can import it in Draw.io. And there is a conversion as well between YED and Draw.io. So you can play with the tools. This is your toolbox to play with. Now I have highlighted on the slide all the things you can do to help you in generative AI. So on the conceptual slide, of course it's an interaction with the business and with technical people to refine it. Generative AI here is text to text in this model. You can generate, you can summarize business requirements or business needs and generate, based on the catalog on non-functional requirements, a list of non-functional requirements. Then you need to check it and verify with the different stakeholders, but this works. On the principle and patterns, same story here. You can create decision tree, and you can have already documented the standard patterns that you can have in the industry. OpenAI and Claude can do this very well. So you don't have to spend time, redocument what are the different type of patterns. This works natively. Now what you have to do is to use these tools to select the right patterns for you. Right? Now on the bottom of the picture, logical architecture blueprint and physical architecture blueprint, for both of them, you can generate diagram, but let's not fool ourselves. It's not full diagram or fancy diagram. It's just the base of selection of components, and after you can assemble them. That works, and that probably will evolve in the future. What you can do, which is useful with this tool, is as well generate reference architecture model. So you can have your capability model, or your list of features, or your list of enablers that can be generated by artificial intelligence, and you need to provide your own model as input. So at least your own model is curated, you know it, and you use it as input to generate the output. Now, let me go into the content. What's the practical use? Because here we discussed a lot about theory, but I wanted to show practice in this session. And here we are still a good 15 minutes before the end of the session, so now we can discuss practice. All the content you will see starting on this slide has been generated by the tools that I mentioned on the previous slide. All the content, except the last slide, because it's too complex to be generated by which is more the last physical architecture. Let's start with a case. Okay, we take a fashion brand, and it's completely fictitious. Huh? So it's not coming from Accenture. I ask ChatGPT to generate me. Here is my context. Let's assume that it's a fashion brand that wants to do a transformation. What would be the strategy? What would be the business landscape and what would be the technology landscape? Of course, the prompts are slightly more elaborated, but on the perspective is this. Let's assume that it's your ongoing position and you can carry on this in the different layer of your chat. And here for the context, it's a fashion brand. They want to reinvent themselves and they want to renovate their channel. Let's start with goal, needs, and requirement. Remember, we had this framework in place where we need to detail it. let's assume that they have objectives. And you see it's an omni-channel application, so they have sales objective. This could be objective. The format of the objective is using OKR, Objective Key Result, again generated by ChatGPT. Business needs and requirements are derived from what was written before. So you see already it's useful because you recognize a lot of things that are coming from the industry. If you are familiar with the retail industry, it's not completely off. It's relevant stuff that has been generated. You can tweak it, you can modify it, but already it starts to be relevant. And the first thing you can do with it is start creating your first diagram. It's your version, your initial version of the diagram. Based on this, you can say, okay, what I have picture on the previous slide. I have shopping and product browsing. I can have mobile, web, point of sale, customer service. I have a number of things that have been discussed and analyzed in the previous slides around order management, customer profile, a number of things that you can position on a diagram. What a very fancy diagram is your first discussion with the business team and the different stakeholders, but still at least it helps to position what we want to do. Next thing you do, you come back and you try to define what are the high-level architecture decisions, how to frame it, because it's important to give the guardrail for the implementation. Here you recognize a good number of the buzzword from what's next generation architecture. You find back microservices, event-driven, cloud, service mesh. Again, it's generated from generative AI. It's curated, I modified it a bit, I interacted with the prompt, but you see already the list of principles is relatively decent. The key architecture decisions that can be taken based on the principles are relatively relevant. And if you look at the detail, it has a different component of what you expect from an architecture. There is a bit of runtime architecture, how do I execute it? There is as well all the development part. It talks about CI/CD pipelines, it talks about how to get the stuff delivered. What maybe is missing, if you look at the picture, is more the run part of the DevOps or XOps, you name it. Here we are not talking about monitoring yet, we are not talking about how to operate the platform. But overall, it looks good. And then it allows us to, and you see with the stars, evolve our diagram. So next generation of our diagram, here we can start plotting the things that I was mentioned before with service mesh, continuous integration, and so on and so forth. Still same diagram for the functionalities and the top part, because this we didn't touch it. We just look at what are the principles and the guardrails to do the solution. Now, the next thing you need to do is look at the structure. I mentioned structure as an element to shape how you are going to compose and create the different components of your solution. And here are two elements of structure, headless, and you see an example, and composable. Headless architecture is interesting because it can separate the front end, the API, and the back end. So that's an interesting discussion to have, to at least you can decorrelate the front end, can be implemented in any technology. It could be with Adobe Experience Manager, or you could do it with Angular or whatever, doesn't matter. And after you have your API layer, and behind the scene, you have your back end with all your services. Composable is interesting as well because it goes with event-driven spirit where you have a kind of event bus, could be your orchestration. You can implement it with a dedicated composable platform if you want, it exists. And after you have your different components. So that's the first view on how you want to structure the component. Again, the text and the description coming from generative AI. Then you create your first picture of the block. So this, I created a visual representation, but was created, the composition was created and provided with a mermaid composition where you have your different blocks and your different layers. Now it's a visual representation, so I make it nicer, but the base diagram is coming as a mermaid code that is represented. And here you start seeing emerging your architecture. You find back the channel layer, you find the front layer, your API gateway, and the different components. But now you are not done with the conceptual layer. You need to go to the solution archetype. What are the solution archetypes you want to use? You remember in the decision I mentioned there is microservices and event-driven. There are archetypes for this on how you can represent it. And same for event-driven. So we can evolve the picture slightly with starting saying, okay, I will have my database with me in my microservice. That's how I want to design it. And you can picture your event bus and your data lake. And here we see the representation of the XOps on the part, which is interesting to cover the CI/CD pipeline. We say it's cloud hosted, and we may have a service mesh to do the orchestration. So if I do the summary here, with generative AI, with a little bit of effort, so if I quantify it, it took me maybe 2 hours to do it, we managed to have a first cut of, based on a fictitious case, a Stroman architecture diagram with a meaningful discussion we can have. That is relatively decent to have a discussion together with the key stakeholders. Now let's move forward. So we covered the purple part. Let's cover the green part. What you see here is a non-conventional representation of a business capability map. Usually you will represent a business capability map with a nice picture with a lot of boxes on it that are all aligned. Now it's a YED representation, it's an organic tree representation. It's fancy, but it's useful as well because you can see the different patterns of the different key business capabilities in a tree that would be interesting. And I've added purple stars on where it's relevant. The text representation of the text representation is coming from generative AI with the structure. In real life case, it should either come from enterprise architecture department of the company you are working with, or it should come with a mix of, okay, you have a base, you know what are the key processes, and you need to augment them. You need to come with, okay, it's a new feed that we are developing. What are the key processes that would be relevant in this space? And you can do this representation. Here, given we are talking about omni-channel platform, in typical fashion world, it would be more impacting all the sales and marketing. Typically, you may have omni-channel strategy or CRM piece, customer relationship management. And this is where you will see with the customer care maybe on one side, and on the other side, you have your front end and your layer and how you want to represent it. Now, you may want to impact supply chain management, but for sure, you may not go to product design. You may or may not. You remember the Nike story a few years back when you could choose your colors and the shape of your shoes. You could go even in this space, but in my case, I have selected to just restrict it to sales and marketing. Same story here. You have all the history, so you have the functional requirements, you have the non-functional requirements, you have a bit your shape with the different components, and you can generate the features. It can give you an ideas. Of course, it should be carefully looked at, and it's not meant to be definitive, but you can have a look to what are the features that would be relevant in this case to be implemented. And you can give input on an existing product backlog that could be there to mix it and detail it. Now, the next thing that you can do with this now, so you have your capability map, you have your features, so you have a number of things that you want to do, and you can do a representation of it. That's more an elaborated representation on, okay, at high level, this is what I want to cover. And you see I've started to plot products. Remember what I said? It's a cube. So at some point, people are saying, okay, yes, but we are using this and this technology. Is it relevant? So you can start to picture it, and you can start to plot it when it is relevant. But you find like the same structure that was discussed before in the conceptual layer. Now, next thing you want to do is to understand what are the technology capabilities and enablers. So you have your pictures at high level, and all this picture, you see you have your platform. In here, I only took the platform for this case, where you have middleware, data processing, machine learning, mobile services, API management, all the things that I need in my solution. And all the things that you see below are elements that you wouldn't need. And why you need to create this map is a bit of the visual representation of what you need to select in terms of non-functional and functional things on your platform in order to do your product selection. Remember, we're on the logical part. So at logical layer, you say that you want to do scalability, transaction management, database. It's a mix of platform enablers, platform features, and capabilities. It's why I said before, you need to come with your own model to start with. Otherwise, you may end up with very, very different pictures. You may end up with something that is not curated. And even if you are a deep expert on all these boxes, and you can challenge ChatGPT, or you need to come with your own model as input in order to make sure that this model is a bit curated. Now, what's powerful with this is that this still has been generated with this structure. With this one was with ChatGPT-4, with a bit of the help of Claude for the top layer, for giving the structure and what you want to do. And the black stuff here, highlighted here, is what we have selected as key capabilities or enablers that are relevant. And if I finalize here with the next 2 slides, or 3 slides, here you arrive on the component slide. You remember, you look at structure here, same platform, middleware, processing, but the stuff in the middle are different. Here is technology components that you have selected. And what's interesting here is that you can do the mapping between the two. And this is how you will do the product selection. So at Accenture, we have this 3 layer plus the product. So if you select, for example, transaction management, database capability, scalability, then we have a product selection of saying, okay, you can, if you are on AWS or Azure or on Oracle or whatever, these are the list of products that are matching the features and capabilities that you have selected. But you can do the same yourself by using generative AI tools that can prompt and do recommendation for the type of solution with your mapping. So, and if I finish on the story here, you end up with the full picture. So I said at the start, this one is not generated. It would be too complex to be generated at this stage. But all the elements and the ingredients are coming from what has been done before. So it's why it's interesting, because it's the end-to-end flow where you see that every single step of the thought process, you can be helped and supported by generative AI. So if I conclude on this, is it magic? No, definitely no. It takes a couple of hours to do all this. Now, without generative AI, it would have taken a couple of days or more. So that's already an help. Now, it's not magic, because if you don't have the framework, the approach, and the right tool set, then it's very likely that you will design something that either the business does not want, or that's something that cannot be implemented, because that's simple. You know very well that generative AI can have hallucination. If you push it a bit, it will always give you a text as output. But is it the right thing? That's what you need to challenge. And if you are not the expert on the topic, it becomes a bit complicated to challenge it. Now, there are still things, I mean, we should not throw the baby with the what, it's a French expression, le bébé avec l'eau du bain, the baby with the water of the bath, meaning that still generative AI is powerful. It's not because there are hallucination and you can do stuff that is not fantastic. So it's good, you need to use it for what it is good. So first thing is text to text. Let's not dream about text to diagram directly, it's too advanced. But with text to text, it works to do the refinement of your business requirement, to create your reference model, to start having a product comparison. All of this works and is very interesting and very powerful to use. As long as you have the right framework, approach, and toolset in place to make sure that it is guided and you can control what is generated from a text perspective. And I will finish on this. You need to think on how to control and decide whether the quality is good or not at every single stage on your process. And now I will pause here for question. I hope you liked it, but I will pause it. I will pause here for question.
Okay, thank you very much for your talk. We have some questions. So let's start with the first one, most liked. Can you please give us example of a prompt how you used AI to generate mermaid diagram? So some example.
So you can just instruct directly ChatGPT to generate a mermaid diagram. So now you have multiple mermaid diagram. If you go to the mermaid.js, you will see the one that is the most interesting is that is closer to architecture is with the block diagram. So what you can, example of prompt is you can start saying you have all your context before with your solution and what you want. An example of prompt would be, can you generate a diagram of this component with these links using the code representation of Mermaid, of Markdown using a Mermaid representation. Something equivalent to this would work to generate a diagram. Now, we have to be a bit careful here because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. In good number of cases, ChatGPT 3, for example, is unable to generate proper Mermaid code that is properly generated. And after, you can mix the generative AI tools. You can use Claude, or you can use the LLMA model from Meta, which is good for generating code as well. Mindset is you need to generate code. The stuff that is produced is like code with a structure. Now, the structure is simple enough to have the list of all the entities and after the relationship between the entities. So with process flow diagram, you already have a good view on, okay, what's your process with the layering and the structure. And this works reasonably well.
Okay, thank you. Hope that answered. We have time probably for one more. If you feed ChatGPT your own model as an input, what form do you use? Picture, draw.ao, diagram, or some other form? What works the best?
So the question is about generating diagrams, right?
Yes.
So
if you feed ChatGPT your own model as an input, what form do you use?
So there are multiple diagrams that you have in architecture. The diagram representation that we have seen at the end with the reference capability model, the easiest one to represent is to use PowerPoint to generate it. Why? Because with the smart arts, you can generate a tree that is very well structured the same way that you can have your capabilities represented with the tree layers. Now, for generate diagrams, in Draw.io, you have the possibility to import directly from formatted code from Mermaid. So you have the option, and it's not even an add-in, I think it's standard things, so where you can do the import. So you generate your Mermaid, and after you do the import. An alternative will be as well, you can use the head directly to generate, if you curate your prompt, you can use directly YED to generate the diagram based on your prompt. So if you go to the YED website, you have a live view of like Draw.io where you can use it, and you have a button where you can have a creation of update of diagram with YED directly. So that's the easiest path. Now, there is no magic here. Today, you cannot generate a fancy diagram without using this proxy. Now you have alternatives. You can use Plant.uml. You have others ways to do it. What I've used most is Mermaid, but you have other alternatives that could work as well to generate diagram. And I expect that now, with the possibility to have Python code directly callable from ChatGPT, we can do much more, because then we can interact based on the prompt, coding this Python code with libraries in order to generate code. They need to open up a new world, because you have a Python library to generate diagrams, which exists today. Then if you mix the two, then it can work and it can be very fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much. Time's up. Thank you, Olivier.
Thank you very much.